Hey there, duelists, and welcome back to the Crystal Domain. Today, we are taking a similar formula that we've done in the past, where we took the Crystal Beast structure deck, the Legend of the Crystal Beast structure deck from a couple years back, and we're going to take a copy of that, or more specifically, 3 copies of it, and turn it into a Genesys format legal deck. To show the idea of what a person could do if they were into the format, into Crystal Beast, or wanting to get into Crystal Beast, and seeing a extremely budget-friendly way of doing so that is still gonna, be able to get the job done, realistically. In comparison to some of the other decks that are point restricted, unlike the Crystal Beasts. I did this prior in a different video for Domain format, taking the Crystal Beast structure deck with some upgrades in mind and turning it from a structure deck into a legal deck for Domain format. If you are interested in that, that video is available on this channel. And just in general, thank you guys for supporting my content and coming back for each video as they come out. Now, Genesys format came out a few days ago, and if you're not familiar with Genesys format, my last video prior to this one was a quick explanation of how the format works with its rules, my initial thoughts on the format, going over its point system and what cards were affected, and at what value those cards were given for the point restriction system, and things like that. So you can catch that prior video to get a quick rundown of Genesys format, and then jump right back into this video now that we're delving into building a deck for this format. So with that all put aside, let's go ahead and jump into it. Now, this format came out about 3 days ago, and already there has been an update to the point system. There's been an update to it, and as a result, the deck list I made needs to be tweaked. And this is a good example of, just getting used to the format. They're, fixing out, roughing out the kinks, and, the edges, buffing out the edges of the format, to make sure that it is good to go and fits their vision of what they want it to be. So beforehand, this deck only had restrictions in the side deck I built for it due to the hand traps that are available in this structure deck. But now there are some cards that I built into it that were free a couple days ago with 0 points, and now they are worth 3 points. That being Foolish Burial Goods and Metaverse. So we're going to be doing a slight tweak to the deck, that way we can still fit our point threshold of 100 points, while still going over what the vision of the deck is, and not losing too much of that vision as we make some small tweaks to the deck. So with that being said, let's go ahead and take a look at this list. We are currently sitting at 102 out of 100 points for Genesys format. So we're going to need to cut, like, a card, and that way we are able to stick to the strategy of purely every card is from the structure deck that is in this list. So this structure deck came out a couple years back and is valued, if you buy it off of like Amazon, TCG Player, your local card shop, wherever you get it from, a single copy of it runs for about $10 to $13. If a person were to buy 3 copies of it, it would run them about $30. Now, back in the day, that would have been probably the best deal to get immediate access to these cards. However, I will comment, if you bought this deck for 3 copies, you're spending about almost triple the value of what the deck really is. So if you were to buy the singles for this deck, if your card market, if you're over in the EU, shout out to my EU bros, it'll be $12, or roughly $13.71 is our guesstimate through YGO Pro for the TCG Player singles list. That is an extremely cheap list to get a immediate ability to jump into this format. That still acts as ×3 copies of the structure deck to turn that into a legal deck for this format. Now, the vision of this deck is to basically turbo out its boss monster as quickly as possible. That's the general premise of this variant of Crystal Beasts, with some control added due to the deck having control elements through Crystal Conclave, Rainbow Bridge of the Heart, and also just its boss monster is a control piece that is a massive board wipe. So, with that being said, if you are interested in a bigger, like deeper rundown of how this archetype works, I've never really done it on this channel where I go like deep into what Crystal Beast does and like the moving pieces of the cards and how they act for the most part. If you were interested in that kind of deep rundown where you get like my personal angle on the cards, I could obviously do that. And if you're not interested and want someone that has already done it, there's guys out there like Dread Guy, or there's a different one as well. Mainly, I think of Dread Guy has like all the knowledge of the archetype out there that you could ever need, and I am simply just a secondary option that gets into weird alternative format stuff. But if you are interested, obviously let me know down below, and I will gladly do a like deep dive into the archetype. So basically, where we're looking right now, we need to cut some cards and then go over our list. So we're just going to do some quick editing. And I think the immediate thing that I think of when dealing with cutting for this deck is truly, I think we're going to cut one copy of the Foolish Burial Goods. It's a good card. It does a lot for this deck, but I don't think it's truly necessary at 3, considering that we are only in the structure deck build, and we're not having access to some of these other cards that end up being like, you know, imperative for combo pieces if you add upgrades from like other future support that came out alongside or after the structure deck was released. Now, for the card that we're going to add, we're just simply going to drag a Dimension Shifter from the extra deck into the main deck here. Simply just one of it in there is great for dealing with some of these graveyard decks. We're still easily under budget for our point total, and we're still able to have access to everything else that came in the structure deck. So the structure deck actually came packed with some really good generic support. Now, there's some other like hand trappy stuff that did come in it, but their point cost is too high. Like Contact C is 100 points, so we're obviously not going to be using that. But we have like Dimension Shifter, which got buffed to 10 points. Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring and Ghost Spell and Haunted Mansion are other generically powerful hand traps that were reprinted in this structure deck. And so they are going to rest in our sideboard. If you need them, you'll fill in your deck with those kind of things. And then instead of running all the hand traps all the time, I opted for some generic removal in Cosmic Cyclone, which also came reprinted in this structure deck as a great way of dealing with back row. Back row is probably going to be a little bit stronger in a format like Genesys, where it is slower and there is more room for trap oriented decks to thrive, as well as other decks that do need to rely on back row for certain buffs to their strategy. So it is good to have removal for those situations that come up. Now for like the main engine, just about everything you could ever need came pre-built into this structure deck. So obviously we have our boss monster in Rainbow Dragon in the main deck. We run this because it is searchable through our variant of the Crystal Beast, or Rainbow Dragon, Crystal Beast Rainbow Dragon, which is the 8th name of the Crystal Beast. We are still running all 7 original, as well as a couple copies of the Crystal Beast Rainbow Dragon. There's some really fun utility that you can get with these guys, where you can either use them from hand as a sort of battle trap to get out of 3k beater. You can also just abuse them from the back row in combat to extend your battle to have like a couple copies of this hit the field, and that could be a really swift OTK potential for the opponent. But otherwise, it is mostly for extensions to get through to our other guys in the deck, to get our Crystal Beast names out of the deck into the field, into the graveyard, things like that, as well as searching out our Rainbow Dragon. That way, later on in the game, it can come out and finish the job potentially. Rainbow Urge of the Heart, as I mentioned earlier, is a very powerful continuous spell with a number of effects. Mostly it is a additional normal summon, as well as the baked-in ability to also bounce other targets to the hand. Bouncing monsters in general is a very powerful effect that can deny resources. It can rip through a synchro monster, and that's just a straight up loss of material because they used materials on board to get it, and then it's immediately just ripped back to the extra deck. Xyz monsters are also very susceptible to this kind of removal, where you hit the Xyz monster back into the extra deck, and those materials that it had underneath don't get to be used and are instead thrown into the graveyard, or, other powerful monsters or just walls that are giving you trouble. Dealing with them by bouncing them is a great effect, and Crystal Beast is good at that type of removal. We have Crystal Bond at 3. This is just a great searcher. It is a good starter card to get our Pegasus, to get out our other names. Usually you grab Pegasus, and then you put another copy of it in the back row, or Carbuncle in the back row, and then you normal summon Pegasus every turn that you get the chance to fill out your back row with Crystal Beasts, and then flood the board with monsters. In other variants of the deck, this is great for Xyz plays, or even Synchro plays if you get access to some tuners. Or obviously in regular TCG, it was very good for Link monsters. But in this case, for the structure deck, it is a great way to get out the Crystal Beast names to, as quickly as possible, get to Overdrive Rainbow Dragon. Our two main Crystal Beasts that matter are Sapphire Pegasus and Ruby Carbuncle. Pegasus on summon grabs a different Crystal Beast from hand, deck, or graveyard and throws it into the back row as a continuous spell card. This is excellent for recursion, excellent for getting a brick out of your hand that you don't want to normal summon, or searching out bricks to get them out of your hand so you don't draw them, such as the other Crystal Beasts like Cat, Turtle, Eagle, Tiger, Mammoth. All the other ones are pretty much bricks. The main ones that you ever want to draw is Pegasus and Rainbow Dragon. Even then, you don't really want to draw Carbuncle. You want to get Carbuncle out and then abuse its special summon ability, which is the next Crystal Beast we're going to talk about, is Ruby Carbuncle, which has an excellent effect to basically Soul Charge. You get it out from the back row if it is summoned from the Spell and Trap Card Zone. It brings forward as many other Crystal Beasts as possible that shared zones with it in the Spell and Trap Card Zone. So up to 4 other monsters get special summoned, which is excellent for flooding the board. This can also be good for closing out a game if they have no board, and you can just get out a bunch of bodies and swing for usually well over whatever's needed for a OTK. Then some of the other utility cards, we have Awakening of the Crystal Ultimates. This is a great card for what we mentioned earlier with our battle tricks with Crystal Beast Rainbow Dragon. You could use it in combat due to it being a quick play spell to bounce a Rainbow Dragon to hand, and then immediately get it onto the field because you're in battle phase, and Rainbow Dragon can be summoned in battle because you're in combat with another Crystal Beast. So this is an excellent way of just repeating combats with Rainbow Dragons to get out several instances of 3k damage to get a good, clean OTK on the opponent. We have some field spells in this deck that are searchable through our 3-point investment into Metaverse. Obviously, Metaverse would be a cut if we were doing a full upgrade due to Rainbow Bridge of Salvation being a thing in the normal build of the deck. But in the structure deck version, Metaverse is an excellent inclusion that is a trap that searches out field spells, and we have 2 different options for that. We either have the default Rainbow Ruins, the Crystal Beast field spell, or we have the Advanced Dark Crystal Beast field spell, both of which have good utility. The Ancient City Rainbow Ruins field spell, it gets various abilities equal to the number of Crystal Beasts you have in your back row. By the time you have 5, you're going to be able to special summon one for free from the back row, which if you do accidentally flood your back row with all Crystal Beasts, this is a good way to get Carbuncle out and then flood the board forward for some good offensive moments in your strategy. But then also, it has other abilities to protect itself, negate damage, I believe, from when Crystal Beasts are in combat. It can draw you a card. It can negate a spell card by destroying a Crystal Beast in the back row, which I don't believe is once per turn. So if you have 5 of them, you can negate up to 3 spells with this card before it turns off, which is insane. And then Advanced Dark makes all your Crystal Beasts on the field and graveyard dark monsters, which is a little more relevant if you're playing Rainbow Dark Dragon and the Advanced Crystal Beasts. but we're not doing that due to this being a structure deck upgrade, and Rainbow Dragon itself is cut in this build. We are not running it at all. So in this case, other than that though, it does allow a ultimate crystal monster in combat to fully turn off a monster it is battling, which is good for dealing with like tower monsters that are like immune to everything. You just straight up turn them off with the effective Advanced Arc. And then on top of that, you can search the deck and mill a Crystal Beast from deck to the graveyard to negate damage that a monster would deal to you, which is a awesome ability to mill out names that you don't want to draw to quickly get us to our Rainbow Dragon. Then, for some more just Crystal Beast support cards, Rainbow Bridge just searches any Crystal Spell or Trap from the deck to your hand, which is good consistency to get out things like Crystal Bond, Rainbow Bridge of the Heart, things like that. Or not Rainbow Bridge, but it can get like Crystal Bond, Crystal Ultimates, any of the other relevant pieces, Crystal Conclave, Miracle. Crystal Abundance is in here purely because it is kind of a game-winning card. If you do get this off, you send 4 Crystal Beasts from the field to the graveyard, and then you just nuke their board, and then flood your board again with Crystal Beasts that were destroyed by the effects that are in your graveyard. So you wipe their board, flood your board with monsters, and easily get off a OTK, especially later in the game if they are not at 8,000 life points. But even if they were, you might be able to get a big enough board from that. Like if there's Rainbow Dragons in it, Pegasus alone is 18, Topaz Tiger in combat is 2k, so I mean lots of potential to deal very easily 1,800 points of damage. Crystal Promise can take a Crystal Beast from the back row and special summon it to the field, which is excellent for things like Ruby Carbuncle to set off getting big board presence. Then, as we mentioned, we have our Foolish Burial Goods, which sends a spell or trap from deck to the graveyard. We are running this mostly to get stuff into the graveyard if needed, if we need it pitched. It is a lot better with cards like Rainbow Bridge of Salvation to trigger Engrave, but in the structure deck itself, there are cards that trigger if they are engraved, like Crystal Miracle, Crystal Brilliance, and Crystal Aegis. We are not running 2 of those, but Crystal Bond is in the... or Crystal Boon is one that does trigger and is in our sideboard. So if you end up running that in the main board, that is an excellent target for Foolish Burial Goods and the structure deck variant, as well as Crystal Miracle to activate them engrave due to a Crystal Beast being destroyed. As we talked about earlier, generic removal and Cosmic Cyclone. Crystal Miracle is our built-in counter trap that negates pretty much anything at the cost of destroying a Crystal Beast in play, which is very good for us. We can clear out a back row of a brick while also negating one of their best cards. Crystal Conclave is excellent. If a Crystal Beast monster is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can special summon a Crystal Beast monster from your deck. No limit there for that one. So when it comes to that, you can go get Carbuncle from deck and then flood your board to fully prevent them from killing you if your board was empty beforehand or after that initial combat of, you know, when they destroyed your one monster to trigger Conclave. On the other end of it, you can send a Crystal Beast monster you control, and one of your opponent's cards on the field, return them to hand at the cost of sending this face-up card from the field to the graveyard. This is an excellent removal piece that is always relevant for dealing with problematic cards on board, and also resetting a Pegasus, so you can bounce Pegasus to hand, resummon it next turn to get out another name into the back row. And then, of course, we have our Metaverse, which is Field Spell Search, and 1 copy of Dimensional Shifter into the main board from the side deck that allows us to fully shut down graveyard decks for a turn. It is quite good, problematically so, and makes sense to run at least one of it in the main board with these updated point restrictions to the structure deck version of this strategy. In the extra deck, we have our copies of Rainbow Overdragon and Rainbow Dragon Overdrive. Overdrive is our main one. We want to summon him as quickly as possible while he's in play, and you have 7 or more names of Crystal Beasts exiled or in banishment due to his effect. He gains a whopping 7,000 attack, making him an 11k beater, which is an excellent source of OTK potential with a very powerful monster that then can bounce itself to shuffle all cards on board into the deck, and then special summon as many Crystal Beasts as possible from banishment onto the field, which is another version of potential to destroy, like, to straight up win a game by flooding the board with a bunch of guys. Crystal Abundance, parallel, but on your boss monster instead. Then, of course, our side deck, we have 2-Dimensional Shifter, 2 Ash Blossom and Joy, or 3 Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, 3 Ghost Spell and Haunted Mansion, 3 Crystal Boon. Due to this being a 1v1 format and time could be a potential, life points are important in those drawn out round 3s in a best of 3 format. So Crystal Boon could be an excellent way to gain a huge chunk of life points and guarantee you a win in that late round 3 area where things get quite tense. And then lastly, we have Ferret Flames. This came built into the deck in the structure. It's sort of like an evenly matched, but based on your life points. It's not great, but in the structure deck version of this, it is a good way of, like, board breaking, potentially. So I threw it into the side deck. And that is going to conclude our rundown of the 3x Crystal Beast structure deck and turning it into a legal Genesis format deck. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you have any thoughts or comments down below about this deck or what you would like to see next on the channel, obviously I would love to hear your thoughts down below. And also, more particularly, if there is a structure deck you would like to see turned into a Genesis format or domain format deck, absolutely sound off in the comments, and I will take that structure deck and make it legal for one of these other side formats that we have grown to love on this channel. Otherwise, guys, again, thank you for watching. Your viewership, your time watching these videos is the most important means of support for the channel. But if you want to support me further, you can, of course, subscribe to the channel. We are over the hump of 400 subs, and now on the road to 500 subs that will be thick to reach at some point in the future. You can, again, leave your thoughts and comments down below, and leave a like on the video, and share it with a friend, share it with your family, whoever. You know, get the word out there and just get them involved in Genesis format, get them involved in domain format. And if you are interested in domain format as a whole, there will be a link to the Discord down below, and you can come in there, get a rundown for the rules, and join in on some fun multiplayer Yu-Gi-Oh! Hijinks. Otherwise, guys, I will see you guys on the next video. Have a good one. Bye!